Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of Cabinet on Thursday, the 18th of May, 2023. We'll begin with apologies for absence first, please.
Thank you, Leader. I have apologies from Councillors Hayley Gwilliam and Andrea Lewis.
Okay, are there any others? No, okay, thank you. We'll move on to disclosures of personal and prejudicial interest. Are there any to declare today, Councillor Smith?
Yes, local authority governor appointment panel, member of the panel, and I've got dispensation to speak but not vote.
Okay, thank you. Any other declarations? If not, we'll move then to the minutes of the previous meeting. They're on pages 1 to 4. I've had no requests for amendments, so I'm happy to move them as a true record. Are there any? Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Stevens. All those in favour, please? Thank you very much. Those are agreed. We'll move on to announcements of Leader of the Council. I have no formal announcements for this morning, so we'll go to public question time. Have we received any public questions?
No questions received, Leader.
Okay, thank you. Councillor question time. Are there any councillors who wish to ask any questions today? Mr. Holly?
Yes. Thank you, Leader. I have a number of questions which relate to a number of different items on the agenda. And if I go through the questions first, actually pointing out the items on the budget, on the agenda. The first one is about the report on a progress update on Blue Eden. There is a lot of confusion with that report. It doesn't indicate we are doing some land swaps, which are in the closed part of the meeting, which I will, if possible, stay and ask questions in that particular issue, in that particular part of the agenda. But it is a couple of issues about, first, I think, why has the actual name of the project changed? I think that's the first issue. I think the second issue is, and I think this is one which is a long-standing issue, and that is about the park and ride. Now, for many years, the discussion was about the park and ride was too close to the city centre. And there was discussions at one stage about moving it further out. This obviously indicates that that is not going to be the case. So I think that's first the one item that needs to be discussed. And the other one is about the...
This is on agenda item 15, the open Blue Eden report.
And the other issue on the Blue Eden one is about the cost. But again, some of that is in the report, the confidential report. So if possible, I would prefer to ask questions then.
So, Councillor Holly, if I just deal with the first two questions, I think in terms of the naming of the project, why the name has changed, obviously it's a different scheme led by a different consortium this time. So they have chosen a brand that is a working title for the Lagoon project. It may be that the name changes as the project progresses, but that's the working title at the moment. I think the second point on the park and ride, I think it was just in the report is to give assurance that despite some of the changes that are proposed, it is not envisaged at this point that the park and ride would move, and that would not be disrupted by the proposals here today. However, you may be aware we are already consulting on broader park and ride issues and park and ride options anyway, and that continues to be under review because we still have aims and aspirations to deliver further park and ride opportunities to communities from the West and elsewhere.
Thank you for that, Leader. I think that's really all on Blue Eden. The other one is on the strategic partners, energy cost, financial support. Whilst, you know, I think everybody would agree that Freedom Leisure and the Wales National Pool, because the Wales National Pool is a contractual issue anyway, and Freedom Leisure, at the end of the day, I don't particularly like some of the paragraphs in the report, especially the one about if we had to take it back into in-house. I think that was unnecessary. But one question I would ask, and that is why the 200,000 for Ambassador Theatre Group. The reason I ask that is there's lots of businesses in Swansea, a great number of them, have gone bust. There's lots of restaurants, there's lots of public houses, and there's lots of clubs are all suffering. And I know that we have given a level of support to many of these businesses, but the level of support to the Ambassador Theatre Group seems to be proportionally larger than in many others. So I'd like to know what the rationale for that is, as opposed to the rationale for the Wales National Pool and Freedom Leisure.
So again, Councillor Holly, you'll know that public sector and its organisations were originally excluded from government help, and then when the government help was included, it left us again getting a sum of zero from UK government for help. However, we had made a decision, I think, which Mr. Smith alluded to at a previous meeting, and at scrutiny earlier this week, where we'd taken a decision to use the Economic Recovery Fund to set aside sums to help both our own internal organisations, such as schools, face up to the energy challenges that we have, but also to assist those arm's length bodies that are run on behalf of the council or that are provided via arrangements in connection with the council. You're quite right, there are specific arrangements in place and obligations for places like the Wales National Pool, the National Waterfront Museum, but also we have major other institutions like our leisure centres, which require significant help. You'll note that councils in other parts of Wales were considering mothballing their facilities to escape the cost of energy. We've decided not to do that. We want to keep all of our facilities open and available to the public. Ambassador Theatre Group have specific challenges in terms of energy. They're a large venue. They're a specific and significant addition to the city centre. Their business plan is at an early stage, so they're in their first year of full operation. They're not supposed to come to maturity until third year. They're performing ahead of that business case, but it's still a challenging period for them. In addition to that, of course, it is a facility that we would not want to see suffer any interruptions or closures whilst it's getting to its maturity of the business case. So providing help to that is in line with the policy that we set out previously. So it is justified in terms of the arrangements, and it's there to help make sure that this peak and this spike in energy prices is something that those important institutions can ride out. You'll know that outside of that, businesses have had significant assistance from this council. Over £6.2 million worth of business grants were applied for, and they're in the process of being distributed to businesses, local businesses across the council. Significant help has gone in to assist market traders with their rents. Market traders are also getting assistance this year, again, which they can use to set against their increased energy costs. And of course, we continue to help with the Welsh Government businesses all across the county in terms of business rate support. So all businesses that fit into the various schemes will get help. It's not limited to the ones just in this report today.
Thank you for that, Leader. The question was justified in as much as it's proportional if you look at the size on other venues as well. I have
Sorry,
no other
Councillor Holly,
question.
just Councillor Robert Francis Davis has obviously with cabinet member authority. Can you? Sorry. Yeah.
I would like to declare personal interest in the Wales National Pool as a director put in on behalf of the authority.
Yep.
And so
Likewise, Councillor Smith. Okay, thank you both. Okay, thank you, Councillor Holly. Sorry. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Thank you. So that concludes councillor question time. We'll now go on to local authority governor appointments. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Leader. There are two names before us this morning, and I would like to thank them for coming forward and volunteering as school governors.
Thank you. And moving the report. Yep. Okay, thank you. Happy to second. Mr. Evans, if we could launch the vote, please.
Thank you, Leader. The vote has been launched. Does anybody need to vote electronically? Yeah, I'll take. I'm quite a number short at the moment, so who needs to vote that hasn't voted? Councillor Anderson, how do you vote? Any others?
That's everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, colleagues. We'll now go to agenda item 8, which is Vulnerable Learner Service Inclusion Strategy. Councillor Smith first, please.
Thank you, Leader. This report presents work undertaken by our officers and also with a significant input from the Education CDC. Can I thank all members of the committee, and the chair is with us this morning, Councillor Mike Dirk, for the work they've done in supporting the delivery of this report. I think if we cut to the chase on this, section 3.6 of the report identifies some of the key priorities moving forward: promoting attendance, promoting inclusion, achieving the right balance between universal provision and specialist provision. And then the last two in that section, embedding a shared inclusion ethos across all establishments in Swansea, and the emotional health and psychological well-being of all pupils being promoted through whole school approaches. And I think this report outlines changes which we will need to make to achieve the right balance, as I said, between what happens in each of our schools and also ensuring access to specialist facilities. It's about the ethos we want all schools to promote, and it's about addressing the growing concerns about attendance, about behaviour, and the emotional well-being of children and young people arising from the pandemic, and I think other social causes as well in the last 5 or 10 years. So it shows a direction of where we want to go. It shows how we will be working with our schools, and it also shows the range of data we will be collecting centrally, and how, perhaps more important than what we collect, is how we use that data to inform practice and support our schools moving forward. There's a great deal of work that has gone into this report, both by officers and, I said, by the CDC, and I'd like to thank everyone who's had an input into it. I think we got a strong foundation here, allied, of course, to the investment which the council is making through the Sustainable Communities Programme, Sustainable Schools Programme. I think all of that shows the commitment of this authority to making sure that all children and young people in Swansea have access to the highest educational facilities, but also that their health and well-being is promoted as well. So it's given me great pleasure this morning to move the report, Leader.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Councillor Dirk, is there anything you wanted to add?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Smith. All I'd say is that the CDC, built on the work of the PDC the year before, going through the most difficult time we've ever seen in Swansea and in our schools through the pandemic. And there was a very strong focus on understanding vulnerability. So we really, as a committee, revisited the statistics and then built on that as we went forward. And I think I'm delighted to see this report coming together at a time where we are building excellence in all Swansea schools, and it's testimony to the collaboration across the council, I think, as well. And we've seen that positive partnership between the committee and the excellent work of the officers. So thank you very much for inviting me today.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dirk. And again, I'll add to what Councillor Smith said in terms of the thanks both to all the officers and those involved, but specifically to the committee for the work that they did to support this as well. With that, I'm happy to formally second. Are there any questions or comments for Councillor Smith or Councillor Dirk? Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. In the main part of the report, I was going to ask a question regarding on attendance, on how to encourage the children to come back into school. But when I looked in Annex A, it answered what will we do, and I'm sure the support schools to develop engaging and an exciting curriculum. So I should imagine that would bring the children, hopefully, back into education. Rob?
That's right. I mean, it is about the work of the Education Welfare Service. Is about ensuring that parents fulfil their duties. But as you said, Councillor Anderson, it's about having that curriculum, and I think curriculum for Wales offers us an opportunity to do that, to tailor the school curriculum to the needs of the children, to genuinely reflect their interests and to take them with us so that they actually want to go to school, that they enjoy school, and that they want to learn. And I think that is going to be one of the key planks of the strategy.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. If there aren't any more comments or questions, then if we could move to the vote, please, Mr. Evans.
Thank you. The vote has been launched. That's okay. How do you vote, Councillor Stevens?
For.
And that's unanimous for, Leader.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Evans. Thank you, colleagues. On to item 9 then, which is a report on the installation of a 3G pitch at Ulfa Comprehensive School. Councillor Smith.
Yes, thank you, Leader. It's me again. Members will be aware of the background to this in terms of the 3G and fencing arrangements in Olchfa, and the background in terms of the land sale. As in other areas, the costs are escalating, and this is seeking to commit more to the part to enable this scheme to be delivered. So I would formally move the report, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Francis Davis.
Yeah, I would happily support this. I think, it's really important for the school. It increases wellness and activity in sport, not just for the school, but for the community in that region. It's part of, I suppose, of the perfect storm that's happened everywhere with increasing costs and inflation. That's never been kept under control by on a national scale, but happy to support this.
Okay, thank you. Can I just check you formally seconding? Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I absolutely agree with the comments you both have made, and I think it'll be a great facility for the school. Okay, are there any comments or questions to the Cabinet members? Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Again, I would like to thank the officers, because this has been a long-running episode to try and get together. I would like to thank the officers for their commitment in achieving this new 3G pitch. And I could see as an expression of interest has been submitted by Welsh Government. I can remember my grandfather always saying about an old wise Chinese person. His name was Confucius, and he says, never look a gift horse in the mouth. I think what we should be doing is looking at Welsh Government and taking them to be the gift horse and take the money and run. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Anderson. We'll go to the vote, please, if we can. Thank you.
Vote has been launched, Leader. Yeah, I'm waiting for another vote. Anyone not voted? Councillor Stevens?
Yeah, for.
Councillor 2 for. Unanimous, Leader.
Oh,
That's unanimous, Leader.
okay, thank you very much, colleagues. I'm going to pause at this point. Councillor Holly, I know we did pre-decision scrutiny this week on items 10 and 14. Do you want to take them individually, or do you want to do a combined feedback? Do you want to do both now then, and we'll respond then as we take the reports?
I'm not sure how many of you have actually read the letter, but I think it was incredibly important that we did the scrutiny on it because of to have the correct governance, especially with the sums of money involved. And during that discussion, it was plainly obvious that everybody supports the additional capital and what the programme consists of. I think the two issues that stuck out that stood out from the discussions were, one, the temporary measure that this is going to be, both in revenue and in capital, and I accept the fact that it was a mistake in the revenue report, which is further on in the one in item 14, where it said capital when it should have said revenue. But I think what was important about the scrutiny function was the fact that we learned that these are all temporary and being used out of a fund, or they're being paid for out of a fund which is in existence, which will not affect the core budget. And I think that's the fundamental issue that the scrutiny function did find out, that what we have to be very mindful of the fact is that the core budget was not affected by these particular items. And I think in future, when these sort of discussions take place, or when these items are added at either a cabinet meeting or at a council meeting, we should take into consideration that for the sake of good governance, and we should actually have them scrutinised, which we did on this occasion. And I thank everybody involved, and I thank you, Leader, for sparing the time to come on to that meeting. I know you were away in a conference, but I thank everybody involved, and I hope that our understanding and members' understanding of the temporary measure and the reasons this were put in will completely understood. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Holly. And I think, it's important to point out that whilst we were able to proceed with delivery of additional items announced at the budget and obviously before us today, that fund is significantly reduced because of the lack of UK government help. The fact is there would be potentially another £15 million available to deploy into services had the UK government not specifically excluded councils like Swansea from help with energy. So, there potentially could have been a much longer list. And again, it was really useful for us and sensible for us to have made sure that we allocated a reserve to get us through this position. But it would have been my preference to see UK government help coming in to help with energy costs in the way that has been suggested, perhaps with a greater levy on national oil producers and gas companies, so that money could be used to support our schools and residential care homes, and then additional monies used to support our communities from our local funds. So, but that is the UK government's decision, and we have to do our best to mitigate the impacts of it. But thank you for the work at Scrutiny and for the invitation. I found it a useful session, and again, I'll say a little bit more when we come to item 14 in terms of the detail of the additional provisions. And I'm sure, Mr. Smith, did you want to, because obviously there is a correction to be made to the tables in the reports that went to scrutiny. Is there anything you wish to clarify, Mr. Smith, before we proceed?
So that clarification is simply that the appendix, because it's been laid out in the same format as the FPR7, does erroneously reference up the top of the appendix as it being capital, but it is clearly all revenue. But I did apologise to Councillor Holly and the Scrutiny Committee because it did mislead, because it almost implied there were no revenue costs. So that is the only wording clarification required, that effectively it says capital at top and then revenue down the bottom naught. It just needs to be struck through and it's all revenue. And Councillor Holly's clarification was indeed useful at scrutiny, and my apologies for missing that when it was first drafted.
No problems. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Okay, thank you for that. What we'll do now then is move to the report proper, which is agenda item 10. Again, 3 recommendations before you, all linked to significant additional investments, and obviously we've got some further reports which will also allude to this as we come to them. But in terms of the first recommendation, that is a further £2 million for investment in place efficiency, and that will allow us to add additional access and play equipment for those children and youths with mobility or disability concerns. Also then commitment to add over £1 million to create 2 further strategic skate facilities, similar to those in scale and size to those that have been hugely successful, that have been created on the seafront in Mumbles. But also taking the opportunity to provide investment into the 13 existing smaller skate facilities that we have across our parks in Swansea. And then finally, 1.5 million for additional support for domiciliary care travel. And again, we had a good debate on that in scrutiny earlier this week. Again, these are commitments made in the portfolio, in the manifesto. They are ones that we trailed throughout the year and ones that we announced as part of the budget discussions in council in March. So again, it's making sure that we don't just talk about things, but we actually make sure we come forward and deliver them. And I know cabinet members will be working hard to ensure the programmes are delivered over the coming year and that the investment then does result in new facilities for the people of Swansea. I'm happy to move that report and the 3 recommendations. Look for a seconder, please.
Yeah, more than happy to second, Leader.
Okay, are there any cabinet members who wish to make comment on the report?
Only the contribution to be made for the skateboards, I think that will be really welcome. I think many areas and many communities around Swansea are looking enviously at the one that has been provided down the Mumbles Road there. And it's only right and proper that that sort of facility is accessible, the accessibility for people wherever they live in Swansea to this great skateboarding facility. So I'd like to thank Cabinet and Council really for making this money available.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Francis Davis. If there aren't any others, if we could move to the vote, please.
Thank you, Leader. The vote has been launched. Does anybody need to vote? No, there's unanimous for. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. What I'll do then, with the help of to make it more easy to understand, perhaps. No, we'll take the orders in the reports in the orders because there are references throughout. So I'll go next to the capital improvement of day services provision in audit services. Councillor Gibbard.
Thank you. It's about to become a bit the me show for the next 3 items, I'm afraid, so to warn you. I'm really happy to move this report to enable essential upgrading and improvement works to our day services facilities across Swansea. I really want to put on record, I've been spending some time recently going around visiting all our day services across the authority, meeting with the staff, the service users, and just really have been so impressed by the range of services that we offer, the dedication of the teams, and the really excellent outcomes that are achieved for the people who use the service and for their families, because obviously it's provides an important respite time for them as well. So as the report states, this funding will enable general adaptations and improvements across all 17 day service provision settings to help ensure adults and families have a safe, secure, accessible and friendly environment.
Thank you, Councillor Gibbard, and again, very happy to second this one. And I think, as you've alluded to, often the city centre and other schemes in our schools in investment always get the headlines, but it's great to see the investment also going into our day services provision so that we can support some of our most vulnerable people in Swansea. With that, I'll open it out if there are any questions or comments from any cabinet members. If not, Mr. Evans, if we could launch the vote.
Thank you, Leader. The vote has been launched. That's unanimous for, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Next item 12, is capital improvement of early help hubs and child and family services. Councillor Gibbard again, please.
Yeah, I'm really happy to move this on behalf of Councillor Gwilliam, has given her apologies today. Like the last report, this will enable us to carry out really essential maintenance and improvement works on our 5 early help hubs. These are really an essential part of our offering child and family services and our strategy of ensuring that children and families have the right level of support at the right time in their communities. So they're a place where our families and different agencies can come together, a real sort of first port of call for a lot of people, with a wide range of support and facilities available, and long may it continue, and that this funding will enable that to happen.
Again, thank you, Councillor Gibbard, and obviously thanks to Councillor Gwilym. For those who may not be aware, Councillor Gwilym is currently with the Minister, which is why she's not in attendance today. But yeah, absolutely support this report and very happy to second the recommendations. Are there any comments or questions? If not, Mr. Evans, if we could launch the vote again, please.
That's the vote launched, Leader. And thus unanimous for, Leader.
Okay, and then our next report, item 13, capital improvement of residential care provision and adult services. Councillor Gibbard.
So last one. So again, this report allows us to fund essential upgrading and improvement works across our 8 residential care settings in Swansea. I've also been visiting these, and again, really want to put on record my thanks to our teams for their real hard work and their successful and very personal and individual outcomes that they work with residents in the care, with a wide range of needs and often very complex sort of demands and things like that. So again, you know, really valuable to have some extra funding to make those improvements across the facilities, and happy to move the report.
Yeah, and again, very happy to second the recommendation, and again, associate myself with your comments in terms of the improvements that this will provide. Are there any questions or comments for Councillor Gibbard? If not, if we could go to the vote, please.
That's the vote launched, Leader. Just waiting for a couple of votes to come in. Has anybody been unable to vote electronically? No, everyone's voted. I've still a vote down. Do I assume you're all voting for it? Just to. Okay, thank you. That's unanimous for then, Leader.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. On to item 14, and again, just to repeat my thanks to the Scrutiny Committee for the session on this. The recommendations are there on page 81, but I wanted to draw members' attention specifically to Appendix B, which highlights a significant number of investments before us today. These were trailed in the discussion at the budget in March. And this sees now the bringing forward of the proposals to release monies from the Economic Recovery Fund. And as I said, this is the residual left after the energy help has been stripped out. And as Mr. Smith did say at scrutiny, this means that £25 million ERF is now fully committed. And all of those monies are now allocated for specific purposes. So beginning in Appendix B, obviously we've been hugely supportive of free bus travel across Swansea over the last few years. That has been one of the biggest impacts for people coming into our city centres and our town centres and our beach and foreshore, to be able to visit those areas free of charge and to get around Swansea free of charge during specific times of the year. And that allocation of 600,000 there is to support the ongoing free bus travel periods throughout the coming year. There's also then an allocation of 400,000 for local bus support. We know there was a further announcement yesterday from the UK government around further support for bus services in England. That is likely to mean further support coming to Wales. But of course, we know transport operators are under huge pressures, and there are some very real risks of bus services being discontinued in certain areas. So this is a fund that is there to assist with that, but it by no means could meet the size and scale of some of the projections of impacts on public transport that are being suggested at the present time. The next one is £1 million aimed at targeting areas of multiple deprivation. This is about providing investment into our most deprived areas and those areas that need the help most. We know UK government like to talk about levelling up, but then push money into areas like the Prime Minister's own constituency, which is not considered an area of deprivation in the UK. This is to do the exact opposite, which is to provide money to the communities that do actually have high levels of need and high levels of poverty. There is a further 500,000 for new play areas, and this adds to the £7 million that is allocated currently for both upgrades to existing play areas and the provision of play sustainability and specialist equipment, as we mentioned in the previous report. This is looking at further establishment of areas which don't currently have play areas that may have a gap in provision. Alongside that is 100,000 to help with the provision of nature trails for children to learn as they play, and for us to assist local communities in creating learning and nature trails in their communities. New legislation is due to be implemented later this year around security around special events and big public gatherings. That is likely to place further burdens on local events, and this is a fund which is there to help communities who may face additional costs as a result of additional legislative requirements. We know that we are currently proceeding with a significant upgrade to the CCTV systems across Swansea. That will also include the provision of mobile dome units, which can be more easily moved between locations. And this is a further £50,000 to increase the ability and the availability of those dome type cameras so that they can be moved to areas of concern in communities. We've been replacing bins and bus shelters and upgrading bins and bus shelters for a number of years now, and there's a further £150,000 listed in the report for additional bins and additional bus shelters. We have numerous requests for disabled parking bays in communities and also drop curbs in areas where wheelchair users and others struggle to cross roads. These sums are there to help provide additional infrastructure in our communities. And again, officers will work with local members to identify priorities in their communities to deliver those additional services. And again, Councillor Stevens and I and others have been looking at the disabled bays policy, and we're looking to bring forward a revised version which will better balance the needs of disabled members of our community and highways legislation. Onto the patch team, potholes, resurfacing, roads resurfacing is a challenge for local authorities across the UK, not just here in Swansea. I was very clear at council that there isn't a redirection of funds that could be used for roads into other purposes. That is not the case. It is a misleading statement to say that. And what we are doing is invest in the money that we have. What we haven't received is money from UK or Welsh government in the way that we normally would to add additional resources in. And again, we continue to lobby both governments for additional resources for capital programmes so that we can upgrade our roads. Again, on record and continue like a broken record, we need to see more money raised through taxation, through fuel duty, through road tax being provided to local councils so we can maintain the roads. That money doesn't currently make its way to us in sufficient measure, and that's something that needs to be put right. But very pleased that we're able to proceed with a higher level of resources to allow us to do further patchworks across the authority this year. Youth engagement, we know we've had some issues in the city where our youths have been involved in antisocial behaviour. This is additional support to help our outreach workers, our community workers and our communities provide schemes that can help engage young people and stop them becoming involved in antisocial behaviour. There's a £350,000 being allocated for additional drainage works. We know with climate changing, that flood risk is becoming more and more prevalent. And again, our teams over the last year or so have been working hard to deal with blocked drains and to create a higher intervention regime of clearing drains to prevent flood risk to communities, and that will continue. Many communities across Swansea recently celebrated the coronation with street parties. We made a commitment that we would offset the costs that would fall to communities for road closures and for allowing people to plan with confidence their street parties. And again, the proposal to allocate this money will allow us to meet that commitment made to communities who arranged street parties in the last few weeks. COVID memorial, if members recall, during the peak of the pandemic, there were calls for Swansea and many cities to make sure that when the pandemic passed, we remembered those who had not just put their lives on the line, but had lost their lives during the COVID pandemic. And again, we committed to look at how we could best commemorate those. And that is why there's a provisional allocation here to work on a COVID memorial within the City and County of Swansea. And then finally, we will know that car parking charges and a new car parking charges structure has been approved by Cabinet and implemented in Swansea. We said at the time that this would be part of a rolling programme of providing targeted parking promotions to the people who work and who live and who visit Swansea. The residents discount is already live in our car parks, and residents can choose that discount by either going via the app and registering or by choosing an option on the machine. But we've also taken steps to make further worker permits available to those working in the city centre, where if you are working in the city centre on a daily basis, you can pre-buy your parking at a heavily reduced rate. And again, we're working with businesses to roll out those permits, but also we want to make sure that we layer targeted offers on top of that to allow us to reduce parking and to drive visitor numbers at specific times of the day or the week to our city centre and other car parks. So that is why this allocation is here, and we'll be working with businesses, with BID and with others to define the final offers that will come forward. So a hefty list of further investments stemming from our discussions and announcements in the budget. They are total some £4.53 million and underline our commitment to delivering on our manifesto commitments made at the election in 2022. So with that, apologies for the long run through, but I thought it important that we describe how these will impact our communities in Swansea and emphasise that we're serious when we make commitments. So with that, I move the recommendations in the report. I'll look for somebody to second.
Yeah, more than happy to second, Leader. I think it's fantastic to see all this work, but it's a shame that we've had to use this should be coming from central government and not us. But one thing I would pick up on is, particularly in my area, it's a very small investment of £100,000, but the difference it makes in awards by greening communities of the nature trails and propose that 100,000 will be boosted, because there is some uncertainty with grant funding at this particular time, so it'll give some certainty to that project. And I think it's a fantastic project that's working across several wards at the particular time, and it's nice to see councils buy into this as well, and it is really making small investment but making significant differences and work with young people in our ward. So really welcome that.
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. Open it up to Cabinet members who wish to comment. Councillor Francis Davis.
Yeah, I'd like to welcome the money that's been put aside to finish off basically the play areas. I think as an authority, we are probably the biggest spender on children's play anywhere in Wales, and I work closely with Councillor Andrew Stevens on this. We've talked to every ward in Swansea and tried to create play areas so that the children, wherever they live, can access good play. Those early years of playing is so important, and it's it works on a United Nations rights to the child's right to play. We are now providing that right to all the children wherever they are in Swansea. And I'd like to thank you, Leader, for your continued support. why we've been asking for this money. There's always great demands on finance wherever, and everybody's priorities are different. But I think, we are standing up for children, and I think that's extremely important because, they don't have a great voice to be heard, the very young children, and it's down to us to make sure that we deliver on our promises. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Francis Davis. Any other cabinet members wish to comment? Councillor Stevens.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I certainly welcome this report. There's many, as you outlined, exciting initiatives showing our commitment to the residents of Swansea. To be honest, and again, there's quite a lot of investment into highways and infrastructure, and I'm glad to see the additional funding for our patch team, small resurfacing projects that have done some excellent work right across the county over the last number of years. And the addition of the drop curbs and the disabled parking is definitely welcome, and I'm pleased that we can look at working with that going forward to ensure that it's equitable and fair across the county for the residents who specifically need it the most and need access to that scheme. And another one then is the drainage. As you know, our drainage team have done some fantastic work under the circumstances, and particularly the last couple of years. There's potential more, with climate change and changing weather patterns, that there is the potential of more stress being put on the drainage teams, and so I'm pleased to see this money can for the following year to ensure that we can carry on keeping on top of our drainage systems, which has major positives for all residents of Swansea again. So thank you for bringing the report, and I'm more than happy to support.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Stevens. Absolutely, and I think the work that our teams are doing in communities is absolutely to be applauded. I know Councillor Anderson's got the CWAT teams out there as well, which is also funded through a similar mechanism. And Councillor Anderson, did you want to come in? Sorry.
Yeah, on item 228, more bins. Really happy for the proposal of an extra 50,000 for the purchase of additional litter bins and to continue the replacement programme. Very welcome investment, Leader.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. With that then, I'll move Mr. Evans to launch the vote, please.
Thank you, Leader. The vote has been launched. And that's unanimous for, Leader.
Thank you, colleagues. Okay, on to item 15, which is the update on the progress of Blue Eden. I'll say a little bit this, and I'll invite the Chief Exec to say a few words as well, if he wishes. So happy to move the report and specifically the 3 recommendations on page 101. But I just wanted to place this in a bit of context, because of course, the original lagoon proposal, which we were supportive of in terms of its concept, was one that eventually didn't get supported by UK government, and primarily not because they disagreed with the technology, the proposal, the concept, but they felt that the payback period and the cost to the taxpayer was one that they would not support. Following that decision, which was hugely disappointing, we took a decision in the region to look at how we could deal with the economics of lagoon development, and we went on a worldwide search for engineers and imagineers to come back with proposals as to how that concept could be changed to make it an investable, deliverable opportunity. The outcome of that was a scheme which contained many new elements, and that was something that we shared as part of Dragon Energy Island consideration a year or so ago. And I'm grateful for the City Region for the support, and the Welsh Government support, in terms of helping us to do the academic work behind it to try and deal with the fundamentals of the lagoon. What you have before you today is a different proposal, which does incorporate the thinking that was achieved during that period, looking at an entirely integrated energy project. The proposals from the consortium being led by DST see the creation of a new lagoon with significant on-land elements, largely the same footprint as the previous lagoon, with turbines as the previous proposal had, but it's the on-land elements and the financing and the revenues that are very different in this proposal. So if you look at page 103, you'll see the potential for hydrogen manufacturing there. It's really important that that is something that is incorporated, because the holy grail is to produce green hydrogen at scale, and that is clean hydrogen that can then be used for hydrogen refueling of vehicles on the roads, potentially large vehicles. But again, Councillor Hopkins, Councillor Francis Davis and I took the opportunity whilst at the Reef conference this week to take a look at the next generation of hydrogen vehicles, and to look at some of the vehicles that are already coming to market by major manufacturers, which have a fuel cell in them which is recharged by hydrogen, and brings together the best of the electric technologies, but as well as hydrogen technology. And of course, the advantage being the refueling through hydrogen of those vehicles takes minutes, as it does now for petrol or diesel, and avoids the lengthy charging that is there for electric vehicles. So in terms of the UK's aim to move to cleaner vehicles, then you have to have hydrogen generation potential and a hydrogen refueling network in order to support that. So having that as part of a lagoon proposal is really, really important. On top of that, then, the report also talks about the wider developments around a battery manufacturing facility. And again, DST have a battery technology that they've developed. They are working with the government of West Virginia at the moment in terms of a facility there, which we've been looking at. West Virginia, for those who are not familiar with the state, has similar history and similar challenges to Wales, in that it's got lots of coal which it can no longer burn because of its obligations on climate change, so wants to use the coal in a green way. And that is where Battery have successfully developed a technology to use coal as a mineral within the batteries, and that is something that really is potentially an attractive new technology. It also mentions the creation of 94,000 square metre data centres. Again, we took the opportunity while at the Reef conference to have discussions with the Department of Business and Trade, and they are looking currently at similar suggestions, and we're very interested in terms of the progress made already on the Blue Eden project, tying together these various elements. And certainly colleagues in the Cardiff Capital region and across the Western Gateway are very interested in where we are on this, and we've got some follow-up sessions now with Cardiff Council and others who are looking to potentially utilise some of these elements within the Seven Estuary scheme that they're working on, and that we're obviously supportive of across the Western Gateway. It also talks about the creation of cultural and scientific centres deployed via domes. Again, my understanding is, in addition to the Welsh Government's Green Energy Challenge, UK Government are also likely to launch a similar scheme later this year. And again, this would allow us potentially to move the needle to have a significantly larger investment in science and technology, specifically around marine technologies in this development. Obviously, given that we're creating new waterfront, and there is a potential there for further housing, including the provision of floating homes. Floating solar array is really important. There's potential for floating solar array within the docks area of this scheme, and that allows you to then run your data centres and your hydrogen generation using entirely green energy. And obviously, as part of the previous proposal, delivery of a 9.5 kilometre structure, which would encompass 11 square kilometres of water and allow generation of up to 320 megawatts from the turbines. So again, it may seem like it has similar elements to the previous proposal, but this is entirely different in terms of the elements that link together. It's the way those elements are linked together that is really innovative, that is attractive, and means that this scheme, when it's delivered, would be entirely privately funded. The consortium are not seeking government support for this direct investment in the proposal. And again, it would allow them to create potentially 16,000 jobs as a result of both the development and the supported industry and supply chains, which is absolutely huge for our region. So I'm really pleased and grateful, and specifically I want to place on record my thanks to the Chief Executive, Martin Nichols, because I know he has invested a huge amount of time behind the scenes working with a number of partners, including people from DST on the lagoon proposals and also on the report that you see before you today. So I'll pause there and I'll invite the Chief Executive to say a few words.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you for your kind comments. I won't add much in addition to what you've outlined in terms of the content of the report and the specific elements, but I'll just make a few key points, if I may. What's in front of Cabinet today, and if you were minded to approve the recommendations, would be, in my opinion, a significant step forward to see the delivery of the Blue Eden development. This is built on, as has rightly been said, the previous work that was done regionally under the banner of Dragon Energy Island, funded by Welsh Government, and the fact that it now encompasses such a wide range of elements around that integrated renewables proposal, which is replicated or could be replicated anywhere else in the UK or the world, and at no cost to the public sector in terms of any subsidy, is a significant achievement and a significant step forward. The Appendix A attached to the report outlines the overall master plan. What Cabinet are being asked to consider today is the elements where the council has land in that location, and as part of the overall proposal that can assist facilitating the overall development, with obviously DST and their partners developing then the wider set of proposals, but they are aligned and integrated as part of that overall plan. The outlined elements that are in the report are obviously, some of them are long-standing and we've talked about them previously, and some of the more recent additions and also equally exciting is certainly around the opportunity for the renewable transport hub, incorporating the hydrogen technology that the leaders referred to, and also incorporating a large-scale hydrogen bus depot that can obviously serve not just the city but the region, and that would be aligned with and linked with the park and ride facility in terms of the conversation we had earlier. Also, is the opportunity to explore utilising the surplus heat that will be coming from the data centre for a large-scale district heating network in Swansea, serving initially major businesses, but also potentially domestic in future. So that's a further proposal that's being worked up alongside the current detail. Clearly, the proposal absolutely aligns with the council's and the region's decarbonisation agenda, making a significant step forward both to our 2030 and our 2050 targets. And in addition to that, the report outlines the additional economic benefits, which have been independently verified in terms of a significant uplift in GVA, around about £114 million a year, but also the thousands of jobs that will be created as part of the development. As I indicated, there's no public subsidy for the delivery of the proposals that are entirely funded by the consortium, and any land disposals the Cabinet are being asked to consider are equally based on a commercial rate of return, and also the opportunity of a further private sector funded long-term trust fund arrangement that would be utilised to benefit the residents and the communities of Swansea. It's always been said that this is a world's first, but it certainly is a proposal that can be replicated, and as the leader has said, we're already receiving approaches from other parts of the UK to see how we can perhaps assist this being rolled out elsewhere. So very much welcome the opportunity to speak at Cabinet and very much support the proposals in front of you. So thank you, Leader, for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Nichols. Absolutely. And again, I repeat my thanks for the work that you've done on this. Just one correction. I know the report is in the Cabinet Member for Service Transformation. That's an error. It should be in the report of the Cabinet Member for Finance, but we'll correct that as part of the record. Councillor Francis Davis.
I'd like to thank you, Leader. First of all, I'd like to second but this report, but I'd like to thank you and the Chief Executive for showing great leadership on this scheme. Now, I know the media in Wales like clickbait. So the clickbait here is Global Site of Excellence for Wales. So I hope they note that, because this is a global site of excellence. The fuel cell was invented in Swansea. Very few people mention that, but that was a world changer. You know, the first fuel cell invented by William Grove in Swansea. This scheme, everybody was excited about the tidal lagoon. The tidal lagoon, for whatever reason, didn't come about, but you didn't accept that, Leader, because you don't understand the word no. You carried on and working with the Chief Executive, who at the time was the Director of Place, who worked tirelessly to ensure that the most modern thinking went into this, making sure that it was evidence-based or everything that was going on. Looking at the battery storage, a Welsh company again using coal, which we have in abundance in Wales. It's only fitting that hydrogen production after where the fuel cell is here is being looked at. The data center, I think is, we can't live today without data centers, and the data centers and using the energy of the data centers to have district housing, heating schemes, bringing all that together with the solar array, research and development, working through the universities. I was privileged to be with you yesterday and the day before in Leeds at the UK Reef Conference, where you were talking about this. But it was great to hear Western Gateway and the leader for Bristol, the leader for Cardiff, talking about this scheme, that the difference that this scheme would make to the region, but not just the region, but to the country. So this is not an experiment, but this will be proven beyond all doubt that this is the sort of scheme that can be exported, as Martin Nichols has said. Newport are looking at it, Cardiff are looking at it, Bristol will be looking at it. I'm sure Canada will be looking at it, and I think that this is a no-brainer. The interest everywhere we went in Leeds over the last 2 days, people want coming on, talking about the Blue Eden project. Can we have details about it? The excitement about it. Every stand that we went on were really building this up, but they weren't building it up for no reason. They were building it up because everybody's excited about it. So well done, Leader. Well done, Chief Executive.
Thank you, Mr. Francis Davis. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, it was really heartwarming to be at this conference, to see everybody else, and I would say not just watch us fail, but watch us succeed. And this is going to be really, really reputational to us. I actually think this will change the region, this will change Wales, and we are being watched very carefully. Whilst at that conference, it was quite heartwarming to see so many people come in and wanted to talk to us about investment. So that, this is a trigger for many, many other things. So 6 years ago, when I was Lord Mayor, I was privileged enough to host a dinner with Sir Charles Henry. His words was, it was a no-brainer. It was a no-brainer then, it's a no-brainer now. I think this is fantastic for this city, fantastic for the leadership, for where we are. But it's all about the leadership and the drive and with the passion to succeed. And I'm really, really proud. And I think this city has got a history of succeeding. When you look at some of the strategic things they've done for many years, where they built the marina, they actually put the barrage across the river. This is game-changing with this city, and this will be yet again, people will look back on us and say how lucky we were at that particular time. Not lucky, sorry, lucky was the wrong word, how passionate we are to deliver that change. So well done to all, and I do agree. Thank you to the Chief Executive. Well done. It's just a fantastic scheme. Hope it comes sooner than later. That's all I say.
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins, and thank you both. I'm sure Chief Executive will say thank you for the kind words as well. So thank you all. As Chief Executive did say, this is an enabling report. It references a significant milestone in the steps towards delivery of a lagoon. And again, I'm happy to formally move, and I know Councillor Francis Davis formally second the recommendations on page 101. So are there any other comments or questions before we go to the vote? Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I too would like to reiterate Councillor Francis Davis and Councillor David Hopkins, their thoughts on Blue Eden. It's going to be a game changer for Swansea. And I too would like to thank you, Leader, and especially Martin Nichols. I know he has bent over backwards to fetch this project to Swansea. He's worked extremely hard, and thank you, both of you, for fetching this to Swansea. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Very much appreciated. Okay, we'll move then to the vote, please.
Thank you, Leader. The vote has been launched. And that's unanimous for, Leader.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Move then to the Strategic Partners Energy Cost Financial Support 23-24. We had the discussion earlier in public question time, but just to outline the report here for me to move the recommendations. You'll see that in recommendation 1 there, the energy costs and the financial packages, they are laid out in recommendations 1, 2, 3 and 4. But as we said, we are facing what is clearly an energy spike at the present time. Energy prices are starting to fall significantly. However, because of the way in which energy is purchased a year in advance, and the fact that the UK government chose not to provide any assistance to protect local authorities from the impacts of energy pricing, then we were left in a position where we had to utilise the Economic Recovery Fund and then, as part of that fund, follow through on a commitment to support some of our arm's length bodies who deliver services on our behalf, but also to make sure that facilities that people of Swansea want to see it continue to be open and accessible continue to do so. So I'm very happy that we're able to provide this support. I would remind members that we are the only council in Wales to create an economic recovery fund, and we were the only ones to able to provide such significant support out to our own services and, of course, other organisations in our locality. And again, that has left other councils, I think, facing significant difficulties in terms of trying to provide the sort of support that we're able to provide here in Swansea. So I'm very pleased that we took the decisions we took to make this provision available. So with that, happy to move the recommendations on page 159. I'd look to colleagues for a second, please.
Thank you, second, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Francis Davis. Are there any comments or questions on the report? If not, Mr. Evans, if we could launch the vote.
Thank you, Leader. The vote has been launched. Is anybody being unable to vote electronically? I can see I'm a few people down. I take it you're all for. Thank you. That's unanimous for then.
Okay, item 17 is exclusion of the public. You have the legal officer's rationale, therefore going into private session. Are you all happy to agree?
Rita, can I ask a question? Quite a number, having gone through quite a number of the issues in this report, I can't see that there's anything that's commercially confidential in the one from Freedom Leisure. I can understand on the others, but on Freedom Leisure, I would like to know why we have to go into a private session for that. Thank you.
So again, Councillor Holly, I'm nervous about having that debate in public session because it could lead to disclosure of information that would then endanger the legal officer's advice. So I would suggest at this point in time that we take the report as the legal officers provided. The split in the information in the documents is as advised by legal to protect commercial confidentiality. And if there are any elements that you feel perhaps have fallen the wrong side of the line, perhaps that is picked up in offline with the legal officers so that that discussion can be had without endangering the reports.
Fair enough.
Okay. Okay, colleagues, we have agenda item 17. Are you all happy to agree? Yep. Okay, thank you. We'll pause there for Mr. Evans to cease the recording and broadcast.